Naturalistics, a podcast dedicated to helping you become a better naturalist. We do this through asking great questions, making good observations, and telling stories.
The trifles!
My name is Stefan. Here with me is Matt.
What's up?
And today we're going to be talking about Naturalist app.
Oh yeah, the iNaturalist.
The iNaturalist.
The revolution is coming. Alright, so you can find us on Twitter. Follow us, tweet at us. You can email us at naturalisticspod@gmail.com, or you can find our website at naturalisticssite.wordpress.com. So we've got 3 ways to get in touch with us. Hit us up, send us some questions, send us pictures of what you're finding out there. And this is episode 8.
Episode number 8, and we're talking about iNaturalists.
We're 8 months into this. How are you doing, Stefan?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a busy summer. I had some good chances to get out and make some cool observations, and yeah, keep plugging away.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I've been getting into ant identification this summer. It's been pretty fun.
Wicked into that.
Started a little ant colony, and anyway, maybe we'll do an episode on that someday. I don't feel that knowledgeable yet, but enthusiastic, definitely. So, without further ado, we're just going to jump right in today. I'm trying to keep our episodes a little shorter, and also we have an exciting topic for the day, something that has been on my mind since I found out about it and started using it, and that is the iNaturalist app, which actually has been around since, I guess, 2008. But really in the last month, there's been a sort of big revolution to this app, and it's actually a big game changer for naturalists out there, for you, for me, for anybody who has a smartphone. This is the beginning of something big for identification, at least, which, as we say, is the ABCs of the naturalist. So it's very rudimentary, but also fundamental to what we do. So I'm going to give you a little background here. So the iNaturalist app is, like I said, it's been around since 2008, and the idea is it was created by a couple master's students, and the idea is to crowdsource data from people all around the world. So basically you could take a picture of a plant, a frog, a bird, a mammal, and send it into the iNaturalist community, and someone would identify it for you, theoretically, and then that data point, that observation, would be logged in the iNaturalist world. And over time, all these observations of birds and plants and all kinds of organisms would accumulate into some real, actual data that we can look at and say, oh, this is how these things are changing over time. Probably there's phenology questions in there, there's biogeography questions, there's climate change related things. So a lot of interesting stuff that you can crowdsource with this. So that's really cool, I would say. We'll get into our opinions for sure on this podcast, but that's what it was doing until about a month ago, when they came out with a new feature on the app, which is a game changer, because in this feature you can take a picture of something and it will identify it for you. Not 100% of the time, and a lot of the time it will give you a top 10 list. So it will suggest a genus. For instance, you take a picture of a plant, suggest a genus, and then it'll give you a top 10 on those plants, which with a little bit of thought and a little bit of skill and maybe a little bit of luck, you'll get to the right ID pretty easily. Overall, it's shockingly accurate. Absolutely shocking. I was out with it, and I was identifying sedges with it and stuff like that.
Well, as you know, you're the one who introduced me to it. I am not an owner or operator of a smartphone, and so I haven't been able to spend much time with it.
Stefan's got the old flippy.
Yeah, I've got my flip phone, which would be hilarious to be taking pictures with that crappy camera.
You might want to take a picture of a panda with it.
So anyway, Matt and I had a chance just now to go and take a little walk, and we strolled around his yard.
I took Stefan for a walk, but he doesn't need a leash. But
no, I'm pretty well trained. So I stuck right with Matt. Stayed out of the neighbor's yard, and
he's a good boy.
Yeah, I think I've earned my leashless privileges. So Matt and I were able to go out and take the program on his phone and take some pictures of different plants. And some of those were plants that we knew well and were pretty impressed with the speed and accuracy of the program in terms of identification.
We took pictures of some grasses, some ferns, some cultivated plants, and some like very showy common plants too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also some like really weird vague ones, like the Rumex crispus, the
curly dock.
The curly dock,
yeah.
Which was pretty nondescript. And it's able to get to it.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed in particular with the limited information that it's getting from a photo. It's kind of like dusk when we were taking these pictures, and the lighting wasn't necessarily very good. And then maybe there was like only a part of the plant. In the case of the curly dock, it was just like the flower stalk, which is a small amount of information to be able to jump in a matter of seconds, really.
Yeah.
Right to.
And with the grass, it's just
crispus.
like I put my hand behind the flowers of the grass stalk, and it's pretty much just that.
Yeah.
I was able to get. I think it was the second species down, but
In the list of suggestions.
yeah, but second, I mean, it knew it was a grass, it knew it was in the Poaceae, and then it was able to pretty much get it very accurate. One quick note is it is asking for my location, and I'm like allowing it to know my location. So I would bet that that's helping it a lot. I mean, I'm not sure because I haven't used one without using the location thing, but my guess is that it can kind of that helps it narrow in. I don't know, but.
And that seemed to be the case too, Matt, with some of the cultivated plants, like the planted flowers and things like that around in the garden. That seemed a little bit more dodgy in terms of the answer that we got.
Yeah, there was
back.
definitely where it was harder for it to get those ones.
So we ended up stumping it on a few things, but
yeah, and so it's scary, almost accurate. It makes me uncomfortable. Gonna be honest, like makes my college education useless. But
yeah, but let's explore that a little bit.
But I just have one thing to say, which is that I think that this app, at this point in its evolution, is excellent for plants and probably reasonable for some insects, but hard to get a good photo of an insect, but probably almost utterly useless for birds, mammals, and almost everything else.
Anything that you can't get a close-up photo of,
exactly.
I think it's going to
plants
have a
are
really
going to be
hard
great
time
for
with.
it. But
Yeah, plants tend to stay still, which is
Most of them
awesome. They're photogenic.
so right now that's where it's at, and so it's going to be. I think I've heard whispers of it being good at identifying tracks. Actually, I haven't tried that yet, though.
Oh, that would be interesting to see.
So I want to try that soon.
Yeah, relative size, I feel like, would play into that, and I'm wondering how it would gauge
I don't know, but
relative size.
But I mean, with the plants, I think one of the more amazing ones that I identified tonight was the blackberry with just the leaf.
Yeah,
Like the pattern
it jumped right
recognition.
to it. Yeah,
I mean, it did get that. That was its number one guess.
yeah.
Was
It knew rubus, and then
Yeah.
the number one suggestion was the blackberry.
and I just think the pattern recognition must be incredible. I mean, it's verifying these against so much data and it's only that data is only growing, that data set.
Yeah. So that's neat. And that kind of reminds me, we talked about that a little bit, I think maybe in the phenology episode, about how many observations
Right.
allow you to, it gives you greater insight into
exactly.
whatever it is you're observing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is one way of using the technology of the information age to coagulate or aggregate, I guess, all those
Definitely.
data points.
Shall we jump into our feelings? How this makes us feel as naturalists?
Yeah. So I guess first of all, we're impressed with the app and we're intrigued by its potential.
Yeah.
I feel like that's true for both of us.
Yeah,
right?
and I think, like I said in the beginning, I think this is the beginning of something. I think this is the beginning of technology that's going to be able to identify things accurately for you. It doesn't take a science fiction writer to like take the next step further, which is like sort of being able to identify almost anything with a device in your pocket at any time to complete 100% accuracy. We're not that far away from that.
Yeah, it certainly seems feasible that's a
and
logical extension of this technology.
And it makes me uncomfortable. Not gonna lie. It's like it must have made people when the first phones were made, like house phones. It must have made those people uncomfortable that they could like pick up a device and talk to somebody like miles and miles away. It doesn't quite sit right with me.
And yet people have embraced the telephone.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's where I want to go with it too, or where I think it's going to go. It's like there's an inevitability to people using this kind of stuff, to naturalists, to this being as fundamental to the naturalist as a field guide is now, or a hand lens was, or and that's part of what makes me uncomfortable about it. Yeah,
so I think it's important to recognize that that it's a tool.
Yes,
just as the
100%.
hand lens or the field guide or the binoculars are a tool, and I think the name iNaturalist, just to be a nitpick here for a minute, is maybe a little bit misleading because it doesn't replace the naturalist.
Yeah,
and I don't see, even with your in the not too distant future extension of where this could go, I feel like that still doesn't replace the naturalist.
Yes,
and I reference the Triforce to support that claim, that I feel like this app, even even when it reaches quote unquote perfection, where like you were describing, can identify anything, 100% accuracy, blah blah blah. I still don't see how that app can be curious.
Yeah,
and it certainly can mimic observation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what insight can you gain from those observations that where you're focusing just on identification?
Yeah.
It could go somewhere. I feel like on the observation front, and then telling the story, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So that's the Triforce, right?
That's the Triforce.
Curiosity,
that's the
foundation,
observation,
and the storytelling. And in the curiosity, I don't think we've created any computers that are going to be that are curious, and that's something that's hard for me to imagine, but could happen. But right now, I just don't think that's happening. Storytelling is a little bit harder in that. What we're talking about with storytelling is like artwork. We're talking about like
it's an expression.
Exactly, like storytelling around the fire counts, but it's like research papers, books, all those kind of things.
Doodles.
Those things count as a story, and it's hard to see a computer doing that. But I could see a computer collecting this kind of data and then creating a map, sort of like what's that guy, Chris Matthews, maps of the mushroom.
Oh, Chris Matherly, yeah.
Chris Matherly's maps of the mushroom phenology. Shout out to Chris Matherly, by the way.
Yeah, love those maps.
But a computer could technically do that in the future. And is that storytelling? Is that observation? We haven't totally dialed in what those things are for us.
My gut on that, Matt, is that I feel drawn to take the position that no, that is not in fact storytelling. Not by my definition, that maybe we haven't fleshed that out enough.
Sort of like a weather map, right?
Yeah.
Like people aren't like manually making those maps every day. They're created by like computer algorithms and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
And so, you could see a world in the not too distant future where
in the not too distant future.
There's weather maps of plants and animals and birds.
Right.
They do have bird migration forecasts and stuff like that, and anyway. But I do agree with you in that overall, in the sense that I don't think a computer can be a naturalist. I think there's a very human element to being a naturalist, especially in the way that we've defined it. If somebody else wants to come along and give us a little argument on why we're wrong on that. But I think our definition, using the Triforce, the curiosity, the observation, and the storytelling, has a very human quality to it, like a process that has no particular, it's not a means to an end. In our definition, there's like the enjoyment of the process. Which,
that's right, yeah.
As far as I can tell, a computer cannot enjoy the process. The computer processes. Anyway, and especially, I think you're right to note that, especially in the curiosity realm, I don't think a computer can come up with novel questions yet.
Yeah, so that brings us back to, like you said, it's a tool. So it's not replacing the naturalist.
Yeah.
But could the next question is, could it replace the toolkit? Like, does it shake up the toolkit for the naturalist?
I think it 100% does. But that's what part of it what makes me uncomfortable is because I don't think humans have a very good track record with their toolkits. I think often the tool becomes some sort of, it takes over.
So crutch.
Sometimes. Yeah, the tool becomes the crutch. And I worry about that for the iNaturalist thing.
Where I see this coming into play, Matt, is from what we saw in our little test, our trial, it seemed like you could go down a road of getting the right answer, the mostly the right answer most of the time, and then start to take the first result and just be like, oh yeah, this thing always gets it first. First results always right thing.
Resting on a laurel.
And you could take that and apart from that just being poor, no active Triforce involved with that. You could go around identifying things and walking away, and the app might be wrong, and you wouldn't be cross-referencing.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was a lack for the ones where we did kind of stump it, or where didn't have a clear result. There was a lack of where do you go from here?
Yeah.
There wasn't information
within the app. There's no further way for you to figure it out. You have to use the internet or books to further reference yourself. And just to we really want to stress that if you're using this app, you got to use some other references to verify your identification. And I think that iNaturalist isn't going to even take your observations seriously unless you're doing that kind of stuff and making sure that you're right. So there is they do have some amount of accountability to their observations. And so you should have that for yourself, just as you would normally. But yeah, it can become a crutch, and I could see it becoming if you're learning as a naturalist, how many things are you not going to learn by learning botany with this app? When I learned botany, quick story time here. When I think back, when I learned how to know my plants and when I learned my plants was so much time in the field with holding the plants, physically holding them, smelling them, feeling them, looking at all different aspects of the plant, and going through these keys and learning all these specific names and types of structures, plant structures, that help you get to know all the plants. So in other words, like the way you get to know people is you get to know specific parts of their personality, their behavior, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they think, and all those little aspects is what makes up the person. It's not just their name. So Stefan has tons of attributes about him that make him Stefan, but just knowing that his name is Stefan is practically meaningless. And that much time spent in the field coursing over all those plants, I actually feel like I have this deep connection to the land where I know those plants. I vividly remember walking, and I spent a lot of time doing field work with plants and doing land surveys and rare plant surveys. And I remember vividly knowing, and I worked on a lot of islands in Maine, I remember vividly knowing where or when I looked out on the field and the way the wind blew over the plants, I knew what they were. And the way my hands, I could close my eyes and drop my hands into the grass and know what the grasses were. And by feel, by the way the little hairs and the little flowers and the stigmas and the styles and all, the way it grips, the way it slides by, and all these little facets of botany that in my world, that's why I do it. And that's what's beautiful and fun about it, is this understanding that's it's more than just the name. It's it's in my body and it's in my bones, that I know this place and I know these things on a fundamental level. That I picture someone learning their botany on iNaturalist and how much of that is lost.
And if that is in fact completely lost, it might be more aptly called anti-naturalist.
Or maybe it's the new kind of naturalist. Maybe it's just like, maybe that's not going to be valued in the future, and maybe we need to be okay with that in some way.
The problem I see there is that your journey of learning plants involved you know all those different senses and using the field guide, and part of that process keyed you in on what to look at. Yeah. And I feel like as for my experience with iNaturalist so far, it doesn't tell you how it knows.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it's this because the flowers are on a raceme and the leaves are entire, and it doesn't have it doesn't
have a process
give you
that's very
any,
human.
it doesn't show you any of like what to look for. So example one with learning from touch and sight and sound and smell and all that, and the field guide, you don't have that field guide. Well, you know what to look for. You can look at something and really get to know it, and then later look it up. Whereas if you don't have the camera, the iNaturalist program in the field, what are you looking at? You don't. You have to go get that and bring it back to the plant or animal or whatever it is.
Right.
In order, and I feel like that's part of. I know so many naturalists who have this thing where it's like you find something, you observe it, you don't know what it is yet. You go home, you look it up in the field guide. Maybe you have to go back and see it again. But I feel like that's part of the naturalist process.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's almost a fundamental part of the naturalist process.
Yeah, maybe iNaturalist just skips over the Triforce in some way. And there's also I had this creepy thought just now of someone who's a naturalist in the future, but they're their entire memory and their entire experience is filtered through the technology so much that when, for some reason, their technology doesn't work, they're they literally have nothing. They literally know nothing. I don't know. I had this weird thought, and that kind of creeps me out.
On the positive side of things.
Yeah, I think that there is a good aspect to this. And I think the best part of it is this crowdsourcing of data. And I think it's going to make it makes identification of species very accessible.
Mm-hmm. And I think
that could have something good to it.
Part of that too is it might excite people. It might get people who have felt daunted by going, doing the book and in the field sort of approach.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like
the catalyst.
So gentle of a break-in that it all of a sudden opens up naturalizing to all kinds of people who weren't into it before. I could see that happening. I mean, it's just it's pretty darn gratifying to take the photo and have it bloop come back and be like, that's a goldenrod.
It's actually incredible. And another thing is my friend Luca, who's a PhD student right now, he's doing a project where he needs to identify a lot of plants all the time, like random sedges and grasses and rushes and stuff like that. And I told him about this 2 weeks ago, and he said it's cut 2 hours out of his day. In other words, an 8-hour day of work becomes a 6-hour day of work, so he can get way more done. I mean, that seems like a great way to use it as a professional.
Yeah, and then it's very much a tool at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
It really has nothing to do with helping you be a better naturalist or anything like that. It's a tool that boosts efficiency.
Yeah, so I think just overall, I recommend that you explore this.
Absolutely.
Because I do think this is going to be a thing in the future. And I don't think that naturalistics, that Stefan and I, we don't want to position ourselves in a we don't want anybody to use it and we don't like it. It's more complicated than that. And I think it makes me uncomfortable, but also excited at the same time. It's ripe for thought and discussion on what is it, and it's perfect for us, being that we just started this podcast 8 months ago, and that it really begs the question, then what is a naturalist? Like, and what is the value of a naturalist? I definitely felt when I saw it like, wow, I feel slightly more useless than I did yesterday. Only because I think the public views a lot of naturalists as people who are good at identifying things.
Yeah, resources.
That's their value in a lot of ways. So I wonder about jobs that naturalists might lose over this. I wonder about people that would, instead of going on a plant walk, would just take their phone for a walk. Any last thoughts, Stefan?
No, I think I would just agree that I think if you have the capability, try it out and let us know what you think, because there's definitely a lot there to think about and to discuss. So yeah, try it and share your experience with us. Yeah,
definitely. And it's funny because we just did our last episode on our field guide rating system, and there was something, because we didn't know about that, or the iNaturalist ID thing would come out. But there is another thing like, whoa, like, are all those field guides going to be obsolete?
Yeah, I think field guides can give you a momentum in a line of naturalist inquiry that the app either just teleports you to the answer or just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
I feel like there's because there's no sort of like, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Field guides always have that. At least the ones that are worth their weight. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, you can hit us up on Twitter at naturalist_. Follow us, tweet at us, email us at naturalisticspod@gmail.com. Shoot us a question, or find us on our website at naturalisticssite.wordpress.com.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.